I was a young kid, and I remember being like 5 or 6 years old around a campfire, and they were talking about a drug. All my dad's buddies, everybody went to prison for drug smuggling. It was everybody down here was in the drug smuggling game in the 80s. So I remember late 80s sitting around a campfire, and I remember them talking about how this plane just clipped the top of a tree. They put on autopilot, and they were kicking the bells out of it, and it clipped the top of a pine tree, and it wrecked. Both the guys lived, but they were mangled, fucked up pretty bad. And they were begging for their lives. And I remember the story. I don't know if it's 100% correct, but they were like, no, we're not taking you in, because they figured they would tell or start investigation. So they just drenched it with gas and burnt the plane. And I was just like, wow, that was crazy. Like, I'm young and I thought that was wild. So I was like, so I started hearing all these drug smuggling stories, and it just like took over on me. And I was just like, one day I'm going to do that. And I did.
So you are fascinated by crime essentially at a very young age, and hearing about.
Yes. I mean, certain types of crime. Yeah. It's the excitement. It's the thrill. It's the cat and mouse. People like, I don't get into like certain things. But like the drug game is like, to me, it's just fascinating because you see it on TV. They idolize, like, Scarface, Blow, like you see all these movies, and it's just like, wow. And it was just like me, like other people wanted to be Superman or astronauts. I was like, as a kid, I wanted to be a politician because I seen all the corruption. So I was always around, my mind was always set around corruption because I always felt like that's where the fun and the money and the girls and just the fast life.
Yeah. Were your parents always around, and were they together?
Always. Yep.
And was your dad in your life pretty often? Yeah,
he was always there. Always there, worked hard, kept a roof over our head, gave us, I didn't have a privileged life, but I mean, I'd say that we didn't struggle at no means. My grandparents were pretty well off, but not like well off, but we were, never hurting. Let's just say that. But I didn't have a silver spoon, didn't have none of that. And the thing is I never wanted my family's help. I did everything on my own. I'm not the type of person, I don't like handouts. Still to this day, I refuse to have any.
I'm very much so like that as well. You have to fend for yourself and do for you on your own.
I don't like people controlling me. My grandparents always I watched them control my parents. So I watched my grandparents give them, my dad, everything and stuff like that. And it was always because there was something attached to it. And it's like they controlled like their financing and knew their inner works and everything else. And I didn't like that. And I was like, nobody's going to control me. I'll do it on my own. I don't have to answer to nobody.
Yeah. Did you play sports growing up?
I played soccer and then like softball as a young kid. And then we ended up getting into 4-H because we grew up working, like had property, cattle and stuff like that. We had like, at least to do on the small things. So we ended up doing 4-H. I raised cattle. I did that until I was probably like 16 years old. And then it was just downhill from there.
Okay. So 15, 16, you're in high school. What was high school like, and what are you referring to about downhill from there?
So I grew up around some wild characters in my day. And where it all started was I got into the weed game. Well, all my buddies started smoking pot around 14, 15 years old. So I was like, this is where I'm going to capitalize at. So I started to try to get pot. My first go around, I ended up getting pot from this kid from school, one of his cousins from the hood, and they gave me bunk bull. So I got stuck with it. Nobody wanted to buy it. So I had to buy this other. I mixed it. Then people were mad because mixing. So my first experience was horrible. I literally lost everything. I was washing dishes at this restaurant and then worked at a gas station, changing oil and stuff when I was young. Worked for my parents and stuff like that during the summer. So I had some money saved up. And that experience was horrible. And what I ended up doing was I ended up getting in some trouble. I ended up doing like 18 months as a juvenile in juvenile prison because I wouldn't cooperate. And what happened was these kids were stealing like four-wheelers and stuff and stealing all kinds of stuff and selling them. But they would park them out in the woods where I lived. So we'd go out there and ride them all the time because we'd find them out there and we'd just ride them, tear them up, all kinds of stuff. Well, I ended up buying, and it's a funny story, I ended up buying the plastics off this dirt bike that they had stolen. And guess what? It was Zach Rose, the one that ended up cooperating. I went in business with. So we all knew each other. I didn't know the full extent to it all. Anyways, I ended up getting in trouble. I beat all the other charges, went to trial and beat everything besides dealing in stolen property because I did purchase the plastics and they were on my dirt bike. So that was where it all started. So 10th grade, I probably went to school probably about the first 3-4 months of 10th grade, and I ended up finishing high school in juvie prison. I couldn't complete it because it was just too crazy and wild fighting. I caught, I think, 7 battery charges while I was in there because them kids are just, it's no prison compares to juvenile prison. I'll put money on that all day. It's out of control.
What was it? Was it just a need for action? Was it just you clashing with other personalities there? People doing shit to you? People trying to fuck with you? What was it?
So here's the issue is I'd say 80% of the kids are called state babies. They have no parents, no home to go home to. So when they see you getting visits, phone calls, money on your books, you're getting stuff, they get really jealous. They have nothing. They're just out of control, defiant. They want to fuck with you. They want to do I can't even put words on it. We just nickname them they're called state babies. And they don't want to see nobody succeed or do anything.
90% of people in there are state babies?
80 to 90%. Swear to God, all day. They don't get no visits. They got nobody giving them money.
That's sad.
Their dad's in prison. Mom's a druggie on the streets. It's really sad. And they're just in there just defending for themselves. And when I tell you they lash out, I've never seen nothing like it before in my life. I would literally get in fights. And I didn't catch a battery charge for the fights in them. What it is when you get in fights, when the staff try to break it up and they get elbowed or punched in the fight, that's where I got 7 batteries on Leos through the whole time. So I ended up I started out in Martin County boot camp. And then I ended up getting transferred out of there to EIHH in Okeechobee. And then I only lasted there like 2 weeks maybe, and I'm getting in a pretty bad fight. And I caught a couple more battery charges. And then they sent me to EYDC, which was a bigger level program. I only had one more step before I went to adult prison. And the only reason why I left there is because I aged out. So I did my whole high school almost in juvie.
And it started with the stolen property that you bought.
Yes.
Then you were in the system, and then it was just battery charge
Yes.
that kept you in the system up until roughly around 18 years old.
Yes.
Okay, so you now you're already in the system. You've experienced it. 18, you get out?
I got out a couple months before I was 18 due to my case manager pulling some strings, getting me out because I was doing good. He liked me a lot. So he worked something to get me out a little earlier, give me a chance, to adjust. I thought they were trying to set me up. So I left Vero, went and stayed at my grandma's until I turned 18 to where they couldn't touch me no more. And then I came back home. I was done with crime. That was just a god-awful experience. I was just like, dude, that is just, if prison's like this, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in that. But it's just like anything. After time, guess what happens?
You go revert back to your old ways.
That and you forget.
You forget.
You adjust right back to the community. And,
When is your next run-in with the law?
Long time.
Okay.
I didn't have many run-ins with the law. I wasn't AKA like a fuck up is what I would call it.
Or when is the next time you get to that point where you forget how it was in the system and the rehabilitation and start getting into shady business again?
So I was doing really well. Like I got out, got a job, I was doing good. I met the girl that I had a kid with probably about 3 months after I got out. So I was in a serious relationship. I was doing good, working. It wasn't until I ended up moving in with my brother. And there's this guy that used to come next door, see this girl all the time. And he was driving like this truck on like 26s. So where I'm from, that's not normal. So I'm just like, I already know what time it is. Small talk. Hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm out in the driveway. He pulls up. So we, small talk. Next, we start talking. There was a drought on drugs. So my boys were like, man, we can't find nothing. Everything's garbage. So I'm like, I know somebody. So I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, yeah, I got it. So I would hook my buddies up just to hook them up. And then I got to realizing like, damn, why am I struggling? I can be making money. So, I started like just getting a little bit. So I started with I want to say I bought an 8-ball for my buddies and I charged them a few extra dollars and I was like, the hell with that. So I bought another one and I broke it down into 4 grams. You know what I'm saying? Put a little something on it, made 4 grams. It was gone within no time. So I went back, bought a quarter from them. And then within weeks, I'm selling ounces. And, it's just like anything. Money blinds you. I don't care what anybody says. Money will put blinders on you like you've never seen before.
Yeah. So you discover this connect. you now have a supply of Coke that you can get and you're supplying it to your friends. When does it start to become bigger than just your friends? And what does the operation look like?
So I didn't realize how big he was. When I tell you how big, I'm talking about like he's connected straight to the Mexican cartel. He's got family in Texas, Mexico, everything. Did not realize anything about it. It was pretty soon. I was buying, ounces. It went to a quarter. And it was always just like, yeah, give me a minute. Yeah, give me a minute. And I'm like, okay. And I never wanted to get big. It just happened. You know what I'm saying? It's just like something that grows. When you got the best shit in town and your prices are good, I didn't touch it. I don't do drugs either. At this time, I'm not drinking. I quit drinking. I mean, I can't even remember. I might have a sip, but last time I was drunk, I can't remember. I drink more in prison than I had my whole life because I had to. And I'll explain that later. But the thing is it just was snowball. Once you start getting good stuff, you don't have to advertise it. It does a job for itself. So before I knew it, people are coming to me, hey, can you get? I'm like, yeah. My prices are good. So I'm selling ounces, 8 balls, grams. Before you know it, I'm selling quarter keys. I need to buy bricks. So I'm buying bricks. I'm getting them for back then, like around 18,000, 17,000. I'm selling them for like 21. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just getting them. And next thing you know, he's pushing bricks off on me. Like, here's 5. I just got a bunch of them. I don't want to hold on to them. Here, you take them up front. So it was like one of them things where it's like, you get it put in your hands. Well, guess what? You're going to move it. And before you know it, they're talking. I'm supplying the county above me. I'm supplying the county below me. I'm supplying the hoods. I'm supplying so many people. Well, it got to the point where something bad happened here in Florida. I don't want to put it on him. Something bad happened. The whole family got executed. Next thing you know, he disappears. And I'm assuming it's connected. I'm not real sure.
What year was this?
I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
Because I don't want to put it on the person.
Okay.
Let's just say before 2006. Okay. Before 2006. So he left. I had no connect. Here I am pushing up to 10, 15 bricks a month and making all this money to just the rug being pulled from up under me. You want to talk about dope sick. Like, people use pills, get dope sick. I was dope sick, didn't even use drugs. It was bad. It was real bad. You go from living a lifestyle, the high. I tell people all the time, the lifestyle is more thrilling than anything else. Like, that was my high. That was my addiction. It was like putting that needle in the arm.
Yeah. How much were you making?
I don't even really know. Because when you're making that kind of money, you're moving so much shit, it's coming and going. After a while, I don't care when he says, this is the difference between somebody that really made money and somebody that doesn't. And everybody that made real money will tell you, after a while, you don't count no more. You don't keep track of that shit. It's just coming and going. So I don't believe when people are like, oh, I was making, da-da-da. I can tell you roundabout what I was making, but I don't know exactly to the penny, because when you're doing it, money's coming and going so fucking fast. Because I was doing that. I'm selling pot. I'm selling Coke. I got hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's how I was able to get into what I was in, because I had money and I wasn't spending it. I couldn't spend it. If you figure I'm making an average $5,000 per brick back then, and I'm selling 10 to 15 a month.
10 to 15 a month?
That's back
50 to 75,000 a month. Jesus, yeah. That's big money.
But I was making more than that though, because I was breaking a lot of them
down. And you're
down.
in your early 20s?
No, I'm 19 years old.
Oh my God.
I'm 19 years old.
That's serious money.
I was a millionaire, but I had $1 million in cash when I was 21. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't spend none of the money until I had so much money put away before I bought anything. So I was literally driving around and busted ass stuff just because I didn't want to put no eyes on me.
That's smart. That's very smart.
And so that was one of my pluses. Like, when the feds finally, we had a long conversation, they used to love, they were like, we can never pin when this started. We could never tell. And that was an accomplishment, know that the feds couldn't put a time on it. They were like, you ran under the radar for so long.
Did you save up some of the money so that when the drought happened, well, when you essentially, let's just say you were unemployed overnight at one point, right? Because the guy wasn't there to supply anymore. Did you have some of that money saved up?
All of it.
Oh, great.
Almost all of it. I didn't spend no money. That was the whole thing. I did not spend. It was just coming and going. I was moving so much money because you're buying and you're getting back. So people, you have a debt. You have a book with all your, thing is. You have a debt. To know exactly what you're making is almost impossible. It's not like there's an accountant or, QuickBooks. Yeah. So for somebody to say exactly what they're making, they can round about it and exaggerate, but there's no way. Like you don't sit around, like a real hustler doesn't sit around and figure out. They're not really doing it. They're more worried about, can I get the product? Who needs it? How can I push more? I was always thinking about logistics, not about how much money. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wanted to make a certain percentage off of it, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter because if I was making money, that's all that mattered to me.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't want my customers going nowhere else. So sometimes I had to go cheaper.
Right. And you're 19, 20. So it's like, just keep moving it.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for a 19-year-old.
Of course.
But for the average like drug dealer, no, it wasn't a lot of money. Because there was people, my guy was pushing, he would get 50, 60 bricks every time he went and picked up from his guy, and they were gone that same day.
Okay, so your connect dries up.
Yeah.
What do you do next?
I start dealing with people all over the place. So I start reaching out to other connects. I'm getting garbage. I'm getting not robbed. I've never been like straight up robbed, but I call it robbed because you get a brick. They give you a sample or break it off a corner of it, and it's really good. But then the rest of the fucking thing is garbage. Or they like layer it to like, they put like the bad shit and then they put some good stuff on the top of it and press the bricks and stuff. Because a lot of people don't understand. I don't know if you ever seen bricks. I mean, when the feds got my computer, I got pictures of like the stamps. Like, there's stamps in every brick. Every brick is going to have a stamp so they know where it came from and their markings and stuff. So
it's like heroin,
Yeah. So they would alter the stamps, do stuff. You could tell a real stamp from a fake stamp because of how they're done. People over here just don't have, like, they do it more like rounded. Over here, they're like, it's like metal that they cut. So it's like almost square. So you can tell it's generic. It seems like down there, they make them out of wood. So they're more like rounded, like sanded or something. So I don't understand, like when it prints down, it's more rounded on the corners. And they like to real bricks come with like, they're wrapped and they have like a thick tar, almost like a inner tube tire of a semi. Like a bicycle inner tube. They're usually heat shrinked in that, like real bricks. So that they didn't get repressed. So like my shit was coming straight from, they package them like that so they don't rip open and tear so easily when they throw them out of planes or moving them in cargo and stuff. That's why they do it. And everything I was getting just did not match. Like I got lucky right off the game. Like right off the rip, I was connected straight to the man. I got it straight, real shit. And now all of a sudden I can't find nothing. So I'm like, fuck this. Let's go to Bahamas. Let's just do it. So we go to Bahamas. We start talking around. It wasn't so easy. They were trying to rob us. I was running the same problems here. And I'm thinking like, why don't they want to make money? Like, I just don't understand it. We ended up bumping into this guy and it was the crazy story. I just remember he had like this Buick on some busted ass rims. Like we're on like 26s over here and they're like still on Doves, like 20s and shit, dude. It was just crazy. And I remember my boy just like opened his door and jumped on because he kept like rolling down the strip of Lacaya, Strip. We kept seeing him. So my boy just like, hey, and he's like, whoa, man, what's up? And he's this big rip motherfucker. And he like jumps in the passenger seat, just open up like, hey, what's up? So we just hop in the back and like, you're going to drive us around. And he had like drug dealer written all over him and he wasn't a drug dealer, but he knew everybody on the island and he became our plug. His hustle was underground casinos because Bahamians can't gamble. So he had a connect to Canada where he get all of his underground casino stuff from slot machines to everything. And he ran all these underground casinos in his back of his like restaurants, gas stations, all kinds of these hidden rooms where he'd let the Bahamians. So he had connects to getting shit into the port. And the Coke over there was at like 13.5 a key. And I was selling them here for 28,000. 28 to 30,000 here. But the problem with the Bahamians is that they only get like 400 kilo shipments at a time. And depending on Coast Guard and the weather, the boats come up from like Dominica or, like Jamaica, and they work their way up like little boats and they run the bricks all the way up and they drop them off at certain islands. And the Coast Guard might be hot in areas that they'd hide out, or the weather's really bad, they have to hide out. So like they'd say that the shipment's going to be there and we get there and you wait a week and you can't wait no longer. You don't know when it shows up and you leave, or time it gets there, it's already sold. Like it's a disaster. It's never consistent. It's a problem. They'll promise you 20 bricks and you get 10. And I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't keep my supply, couldn't keep my people going. It was just becoming a problem. So I didn't realize that I was friends, kind of went to school with somebody that his family, he was brought here. Two of them were brothers, were brought here because back in the 80s when Pablo Escobar was starting wars with all the cartels, what were they doing? Going after family members, kidnapping family members. So the head of the Cali cartel sent his wife and his 2 sons to Florida. And I didn't realize I went to school with them. So somebody knew somebody that told them, and I got connected with them, and their cousin wanted to meet me. So I flew to Colombia. We had full bulletproof vehicles meet us. 2 Zuzu, like diesel little 4-door trucks, fully armed, fully bulletproof. When like everywhere we went, we were fully bulletproofed, armed with armed guards, didn't stop at no red lights. If we had to, we jump things like crazy, dude. Like they don't, because that's where most kidnappings, they arm you, they surround you on the scooters and kidnap, they said. So it was pretty interesting my first time. It was like, when you pull up these 2 matching vehicles and people get out with fully automatics and stuff, and you get in the vehicle and his cousin and them are sitting in the front seat like, what's up, man? Like, come on, let's go. And they take me to, places. We go and take care of business and stuff. And the whole thing is they were like, for a certain amount of money, it came out to like $35,000, $4,000 a brick. They can get it on any ship out of the country, but it's up to you to get it off the ship. And I'm like, I got that. And they're like, what? I'm like, I got that. So we did a run, a small run, something really small just to see if it worked. And it did work. And then we started doing it a little bit bigger because I didn't want to, do something really big. So it was small. I'm not going to lie. 20, 30 bricks, 60 bricks. And then the Bahamian, somebody at the port was giving me up. And so they were trying to rob me. They tried to kidnap me in a parking lot one time, pulled right up, drugged me in a vehicle. Luckily, I had my gun on me and put it to the dude's head and got him to pull over. And it was I probably got about a quarter mile down the road from the hotel when I was walking to the parking lot. And I was pretty dumb. I was shook up because when I had the dude, when they like drugged me in, I grabbed the dude and I had the gun to his head and told him to stop. And they stopped. And I put the gun to the driver's head. And when I got out, I didn't get out with one of them. I just got out, pointing a gun at them. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, they could just shoot me right here and I'll just die in the middle of the road and go on. But luckily there was a lot of people. So they just looked at me like, yeah, we'll be back. Yeah. So we got scared. We went and took the boat offshore, probably about 3-4 miles. And we slept on the boat and did shifts that night in case they try to sneak up on us. Cause I haven't picked the dope up yet. I'm waiting for it to get moved so I can get it. And so we were like, we got to change up the whole operations, but that's a small island. And so next time we came, we were walking with a cooler. And what I would do is I would bring like chicken, beer, all kinds of shit they want over there they can't get, and it costs a lot of money. Like they want like Budweiser in a bottle. Like shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like big bags of chicken wings. And I would trade it for seafood, like lobster, conch, fish flayed out, because I didn't have time to fish. The weather's bad. I'd literally show up, want to pick drugs and go back. So I wanted a huge cooler full of fish. So if I got pulled over, white boys, we're fishing. We got fishing rods, cooler full of fish. We got everything we need. We would load the boat down like we were going on a fishing trip. And I had dive tanks made, custom dive tanks. And we had to put a little bladder in them so you could pop the fucking thing and everything. And then we had them fitted a way that you could put the Coke in them. And then we had touch-up paint. So we'd fill the holes with the little key things and then do that. So we had all these dive tanks and we'd shove them. That's how we started off on a small level. And then once I started doing the bigger ones, we didn't even do the dive tanks no more. Because what we did was they're never going to pull you over in the middle of the ocean. They want to get you when you're coming into our waters. So the first weed line usually is probably like at your 300-400 foot. So it's probably 15, let's just say 12 to 15 miles off the coast. I would have somebody trolling out there fishing. So I throw it over with a beacon. I'd come on in. I wouldn't even stop, just throw it on the weed line. and then they were trolling and they didn't intercept it. Because I would hit the beacon, a little ways before, so they knew to start getting, in that pathway. So we'd never intercept, no nothing, and just come on in. And so we'd always come in empty, and then that boat would pick it up and come in. That's how we'd do it. But once they tried to kill me over there at one time, I was done. I just had my daughter and it was over with. I just couldn't do it. I had plenty of money, millions of dollars. I didn't care anymore.
How old are you at this point?
23, maybe.
23?
Yeah, maybe 23.
Okay. And you decide just to kind of throw in the towel with the coke.
I just had my daughter and I had money. I had plenty of money. And it was just like, I don't know. She was sitting on my chest. I was holding her. She was like 8 months old. I think it was 6, 8 months. And I just remember just looking at her and I was just like, I can't do this. It's over with. Like, I'm done. I got plenty of money. I could start I had a business going too. I was like, I can just do it the right way now. I got plenty of money.
Yeah. So you are now back home in Vero.
Yep.
And you said you had a business.
Yep.
What were you doing from there? You were just working a legit business.
I wasn't even really doing anything. This is right around time the economy was crashing in 2000, like, beginning before that. It's like 2007-ish. The economy's starting to crash, slow down, So my business was doing pretty good. I was focusing on that, but I was doing a lot of loan sharking at the time too, because things were getting bad. People were going belly up. So, I was loan sharking, running my business. I didn't really care about money. I was just taking it easy, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I was just kicked back. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't have plans. I really didn't. I was in no rush to do anything because the economy was slowing down. I didn't know what to do. I was loan sharking. My business was making a little bit of money, but I had plenty. I don't live a fancy lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? I didn't care about the thrill, the excitement, the rush.
Yeah.
The smuggling, the cops, like on me and shit. That's the shit I loved.
Yeah. If you could go back to the coke days, the smuggling days, would you change anything and continue doing what you were doing?
I would have continued to keep doing it because all the boys that I was involved with are still running to this day, and then never got busted and went to prison. I will tell you, I had cops on payroll. I had an agent on payroll, 2 Coast Guards that gave me intel, when to run, not to run, where they're patrolling, what they were not patrolling. And then I had intel. I'm going to do a podcast soon with the agent that used to wire my boat up. So they used to sneak in. My next door neighbor in my building, I was riding around. I had this old 76 Jeep, and I used to ride around on Sundays. It was lifted up. We'd ride around and stuff. And I ran into my cousin's boyfriend at the gas station. He's like, you need to go talk to your next door neighbor where you keep your boat out in your building. So we go over there and he's like, listen, I'm not talking to you. You need to find out, because he had 2 boys. So I went seeing his sons. They're like, listen, my dad had got drunk and stayed a night because he had a little couch and stuff and a TV in his little office. And he woke up to like flashlights and stuff going outside on his big TV screen. So he looked and he's like, what the fuck? So he like opens up the door and like, hey, what are y'all doing? So they like run up like, who are you? What are you doing in here? And put the flashlight in the camera. And once they rewinded it, they were like, somebody's running around loose right now. You need to go back inside. We don't know where he's at or whatever. And when he went back and rewinded it, it's DEA. A van pulls up and these agents jump out with these backpacks. And then they see him like go to my offshore boat and get in my offshore boats, wiring it up. So they had my phone tapped. And so they knew when I was making runs, like when I was doing certain things. So I had intel that they were like that. And I came back that time loaded and they didn't hit me. Like crazy. Like I was like, holy shit, dude, they could have got me. Like I literally came in Jupiter Inlet. This was my inlet. This is the inlet I ran right here every time. I loved it because there's no Coast Guard station here. It's the furthest gap from each one. Ooh. So I came in loaded. I brought it right in that time. So after that, I would fuck with them. I had different phones because I teach on my TikTok account how I evaded them, what I did and stuff. People love that because everybody says they've been through this, but they can't tell me how to evade them, how they knew all these things. Like I just hear a lot of lies. So we would mess with them. So I would like literally get on the phone and I'd be like, hey, listen, my boy called me, fishing's good. Come on, let's go. We just go offshore, right? And come back and they would be waiting. Like they would come in with the cutters with the Midnight Expresses 39 with 50 cal and stuff, intercept me out here and like pull my boat in, tear it apart for hours and stuff. Dude, my lawyer would get so mad and they would try to interrogate me and stuff and fuck with me, and I would just fuck with them back. And
oh my God.
like, dude, it was just cat and mouse. I was just messing with him. My attorney just get so mad. Brooke would be like, you stupid fucker and stuff. And so I got to know the agents pretty well. But they just could never, I don't know why, like it felt like they didn't want to bust me at times. It's like they were building a bigger case against me. Like they were trying to figure out how the fuck am I doing it. And what I would have went back and I would have stayed in the coke business, but I would have done it totally different. Totally different.
What's the one thing you would have done that would have made a significant difference?
Once I knew they were on me, I would have changed up my whole operation. I would have literally moved out of town and I would have went absolutely. The only thing I would do different is that I would never stay in my hometown. I would have done it way more low key. I didn't talk about it. Hardly anybody knew about my drug smuggling things. Hardly anybody knew. And that's why I'm going to go in this agent's thing so he can clarify the operations and how it all went. But when you're running a big operation like that, you want to be off the radar. You don't want nobody in your hometown. Like, because people would be like, where have you been the last few days? They're so nosy. Like, why didn't you answer your phone? Why was your phone off? Blah, 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 blah. I would just go obsolete. I would move out of town and stay out of town. I would never do it where people can babysit and see what I'm doing and stuff. That's what got me in trouble. That's what got me on a lot of stuff. Because I had some grow operations too. And that's how all my grow operations, next door neighbors being nosy.
So when do you finally realize that the heat's off you maybe a little bit? You're spending time with your daughter. When do you get into the next operation?
I'm laying on the couch. My daughter's sleeping on my chest. I'm watching TV, middle of the day, probably about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. My phone rings. I look at it and Zach. And I answer it. And he's like, are you home? And as I'm saying, yeah, I'm home, he's walking in my door, talking to me. And he's like, comes over and he's like, Adrena, that's my daughter's name. He's like, I got a business deal for you. You can make a lot of money. And I remember my ex saying like, dude, like my daughter, he's like, she's 8 months old, Zach. Like fucking leave my daughter out of it. Like being funny. You know what I'm saying? Because he's like involved, like talking to my daughter. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's like pitching this deal to my daughter, like just being funny. And I'm like, Zach, what is it? And he's like, dude, he's like, listen, I want to say him or Trinity. I can't remember what it was. They were down here in West Palm at a strip club and they were like trying to like do anything. Cause Zach was in the pill game. He would doctor shop, go to all the clinics, doctor shop and sell the pills, had a bunch of people going. He was making money, but not like money like I was making. He was blowing as fast as he was making it. So he like had money today, but broke tomorrow. Plus he had a drug habit on top of it. So he would party and get fucked up for days, come get coke from me. And I would see him, he'd get all retarded dinosaur up, like it'd fucking lock him up. So
a monkey can't sell bananas.
No,
yeah, of course.
No. So he's like, I got this great deal. I ran into this dude. He has pain clinics. He wants me to invest. And, like I need some money. And I'm like, well, go ask your dad. Because his dad's a multimillionaire. It's like the George brothers, big developer, got tons of money. So I told him no, because I know Zach. I'm like, no, I'm not getting involved with you. And I don't know nothing about the pill game and I'm not getting in the pill game. I didn't like it. So I told Zach no, and he kept bothering me, nobody giving the money. So after about 3 months, I finally gave in. And I'm going to tell you how I gave in. He calls me one day, he's like, hey, let's go eat lunch. I'm like, okay, let's go. He's like, but we got to go do something first. And we were going to come down, I think to Rachel's to eat lunch because that was like my spot. They had the buffet. So it was like, if your VIP was like $9.99, like prime rib for lunch. Like, dude, it was insane. Their lunch was crazy.
The food's good there.
It's unbelievable.
Rachel's strip club, the food is great there.
It's great.
Amazing.
And the girls are great too. Expensive, but they're great. Probably got the best ones in town. So I ended up, he's like, come on, we got to do something first. I'm like, okay, where the fuck are we going? We show up at Commercial Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. We pull up to the clinic. He's like, I got to take care of something. This is the clinic. Come in. So I go in, I'm looking around. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. Like you see cars going by, cops are going by. It's middle of the day. Shit's just popping, right? And I'm thinking like, okay, it's got a big name. It's got everything. So we go inside and it's like girls are running around in scrubs, things are getting passed around. People are getting seen. Money. I'm just like, holy shit. Okay. I'm looking at everything on the walls. I'm like, wow, this is okay. He's like, yeah, this is the clinic. This is one of them right here. And then we're going to open up some more. And he's like, come with me. Come on, we got to go. So we went to this lawyer's because he was doing something, had to get something signed or something. He was in a process of getting involved, right? And he's like, tell this fucking idiot right here that this shit's legal. That's how Zach talk, like, tell this fucking idiot. And so he's like, yeah, it's all legit. It's all legal. Look, everything's done by the book. It's legal, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking like, man, I just don't know. This is just something like, I don't know. And then we went to accountant because he had to sign some more paper because he was setting up an LLC or something. I can't remember the full things so long ago. And he told accountant, is everything legit? Everything, like, yeah, everything's legit. Everything's by the book. I'm like, okay. So it started like, I'm thinking like, damn, dude. And I hear about how much money they're making, what it consists of. And I'm thinking like, dude, this could be a future for my daughter, a future for me. Like, dude, this is crazy. Like, it's very unethical. I'm like, this is some shady shit. But I'm like, fuck, the government's giving you the license. The DEA is allowing. I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. So I'm like, I peel off that money. Here you go. Let's rip. At first, I wasn't going to be an investor. I just gave him, I think 25, and he was going to give me 30,000 back. $5,000 on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to do it in a couple months. I'm like, okay, here you go. Have the fucking money. And Zach being Zach, he was like, I ain't paying your money back. I need another 50,000. We're going to go in on our own. And he's like, I'm bringing this other guy in. He's going to work in the pharmacy. We're going to learn everything. We're going to make copies of all the paperwork. We're going to learn the ins and out of it all. And we're going to go on our own. And we invested into 2 clinics in Fort Lauderdale. And we started making money. I didn't see none of it. And then he's like, Zach's like, I got a plan. Fuck competing down here. It's out of control. George Brothers, everybody's feuding. Everybody's fighting down here. People are just getting, fuck this. He goes, I got a plan. Let's go to Jacksonville. I'm like, why Jacksonville? He's like, out-of-state patients, you can charge more money. And he says, it's still under Florida law. It's a shithole county. He's like, in the city, shithole. He's like, listen, you're going to save him 12 hours, 6 hours from the Florida line down there, 6 hours back, 12-hour round trip. He says, we're going to fucking kill it. I said, well, how are we going to get patients without losing what we got going on down here? Because we were scared to tell patients hey, we're starting our own, because then Vinny Colangelo, they would go to him and tell, and next thing you know, they would shut us down, kick us out, fuck us over, and we'd be, without the operation yet. So Zach comes up with a brilliant idea. Let's steal the George Brothers patient list. So I was like, I wasn't in for it at the beginning. I'm like, man, this doesn't sound too good. But once I heard about how they went to these other clinics and started bullying them, riding by, threw a brick through a window of one of them, they did some dumb shit. So I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's show them who we are. Not being tough guys, but just fuck these cocksuckers. We're going to show who these fuckers are.
You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I didn't want problems like that, but I just felt like way they acted like they were gangsters. So I'm thinking I like fucking with gangsters because they like to play without the cops. Well, I was wrong about that one. Golly, 23 rule 35s. So I was down for it. We ended up hiring a stripper. We're going to put a stripper in there to work there and print the patient list is what the deal was. Too many eyes, too much going on. She got too nervous, didn't work. So I don't know if you heard about Pete Tyndall. Did you know about the MRI machine behind strip club, the portable semi rig?
I did not.
Because you said you were. What's your history?
I was coming down here.
Oh, what clinic?
I was going to Fort Lauderdale.
Which ones?
I don't do. This was 2009, 2010.
It's probably some of mine. Some of the ones I was involved.
I was flying down from New York.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they were all pain clinic. I don't remember what the name was.
Oxy Alley had 50 pain clinics on one block or some stupid thing it was at one time.
Insane.
So Pete Tyndall owned all the MRI machines around here. He had semi rigs and he parked them behind strip clubs. I mean, it's a brilliant idea because patients would come there all around the clock. You didn't want to have 20 people waiting in line to get an MRI at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning somewhere else. Strip clubs are booming. So it was brilliant. So we worked a deal with Pete. Zach did. I didn't know the terms of it at the beginning. Give him 25% of the first business to give us the patient list. Because he did all who? The George Brothers. So he gave us a written hand. He said he didn't want to print it. It was all in handwriting. So this whole thousands of people was all done in handwriting. So I was under impression we were just going to call him and say, hey, we're starting a new clinic. No. AKA Zach. Here we go. The Golden Child. By the name, that's the name the federal government gave him. Golden Child. It's in the paperwork. You don't get that by not cooperating. So anyways, I I will never forget. I remember walking to the clinic and I remember like seeing Mike with his feet up on the counter and some girls. And I remember saying like, oh, this is American Pain. Your next visit will be at Jacksonville Pain in Jacksonville. If you show up to the Fort Lauderdale clinic, be an out-of-state patient, because this is strictly for out-of-state patients. We're going to save you 12-hour round trip. You don't have to worry about getting harassed by the cops going that way. You don't have to do all this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Your next visit will be here. If you show up at the Fort Lauderdale clinic in West Palm, American Pain, you will be discharged. You come here. I'm thinking like,
oh my God.
I'm like, dude, this is going to be bad. Like really, really bad. It's too late. You already told too many people. So fuck it. Let's run it. Let's just say the second day they showed up at our door. Second day. First day we opened, we had a line wrapped around the building. And when nobody showed up to their fucking to their thing down here, American Pain, they're calling, hey, where you at? And they're like, oh, we're at your clinic in Jacksonville. It's so great. I'm so glad you opened it up. And they're like, what are you talking about? What fucking clinic? So they call our office like, oh, like this is, and like, oh, this is Jacksonville Pain, but like that. I'm out of state patient. Is this American Pain? Yeah, it's just a branch of American Pain. We didn't know that until we got the paperwork, after everything went down. So they send Derek Nolan, one of his goons. It's American Pain, the documentary. I was on the yard when he's a straight junkie, rat too. Talking about had a hard time keeping his, what did he say, his swag on, walking to the box to cooperate against people. Like who the fuck says shit like that? Hard to keep my swag on. So he sends his cousin, and I don't know how Allie, which is Zach's ex-wife, picked him out just because he was young. He had like the Jersey Shore like look, didn't have like, he just didn't fit. She's been in the game. She was doctor shopping, so she knows it all. Like she was at the front desk for a reason. So she comes in the office. I'll never forget, me and Zach are sitting in the office, and she's like, we got a problem. This guy's suspicious. Zach's like, bring him in. So we question him. He's like, we're going to give you your money back. We're going to discharge you. Something right. So I'm like, I'm going to follow him. So he walks out, and I walk out with him. He gets on the sidewalk, starts walking down sidewalks down Cassett Ave. And he keeps like looking at me. And I'm thinking like, why is he not going to one of the parking lots right here to get in a car? He's walking down towards the dealerships. I'm thinking like something ain't right. I see this brand new like 6'3" Mercedes 2-door one pull out of the thing, come down the road. And I'm like, motherfucker. He walks over to it, and I'll never forget. Chris rolls down the window and he looks at me, and I'm thinking like, damn, I don't got no gun on me. I don't got nothing on me. I'm like, dude, they could get me right here. Cause I'm probably about a quarter mile away from the clinic by myself. And the stories I heard, I figured they were going to jump on me right there, but they didn't. I got back to the clinic, got in the car, grabbed my gun, went inside, told Zach, like, they're coming. They're coming. Before I could get the words out, I'll never forget. I remember seeing a white Range Rover in that Mercedes pull all the way up to our front door. And you just see these doors bloop, 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 popping open. I'm like, oh, fuck, here they come. Through the front door, run in there. Zach, you can read the police reports on my link tree too. Zach lies in the documentary talking about, I pulled a gun on him, I did this. Man, you didn't do a damn thing. You know what you did? You jumped behind the counter with the girls and hid behind the counter while you left me in the hallway dealing with these clowns.
FYI, I read the paperwork. And you are correct.
Yes.
So
the police report says it.
The paperwork has been checked.
Yes.
So go ahead, tell the story. It's factual.
Yeah. So Zach jumps behind the counter. They come in, start running their mouth. I didn't get crazy. I'm just laughing the whole time. You know what I'm saying? They're talking about, we're going to burn the place down if we don't give them 50% of the business. How dare you? They're in my face, just pulling the same down. I'm just laughing. And I'll never forget Derek Nolan saying something along the lines like, I got something for you. You fucking think you're tough? You're smart? You got something? And he started like digging in his pocket. So I thought he was pulling something on me. I was just like, what? I'm like, what, motherfucker? I'm like, dude, you don't play that game. Put your hands out. He's like, you can't pull a gun on me. You can't pull a gun in a workplace. You can't do that. I'm calling the cops. I'm thinking like, bitch, you a gangster. Like y'all come up here like the mob. So I thought I'm playing with gangsters here. I'm used to, like shit going down in other countries. Like I'm thinking like, dude, these boys are running around acting in South Florida like they're tough motherfuckers. Dude, I pull a gun, he calls the cops. Read it. Calls the cops. You can't do that. So he calls the cops on me. Dude, I leave. I'm like, fuck this. I'm out of here. I bolt. I get in the car and I leave. Cops are blowing me up. I refuse to answer. I'm like, fuck that. I ain't going back to that shit. Like, I don't want my name involved. So I finally go back because the cops won't leave it alone. They just want to run the numbers on the gun. That's all they want to do. So I go back, let them run the numbers on the gun. They already knew the whole story. They done questioned patients, everybody. So
And everyone had your back. Everyone said exactly how it went down.
Yes. I didn't have to say nothing. I didn't have to say anything. They already knew the whole story. I was gone for hours.
Yep.
I refused to come back. By then, the reason why I came back is the FBI and the DEA showed up. As soon as they ran their names, the local cops weren't allowed to do nothing. They sat there for 6 hours while the agents from South Florida flew up there in their personal plane, helicopter, whatever it was. They had to wait for them to show up. Nobody was allowed to talk or nothing until the feds got there. They shut the whole operation down. Everybody's just sitting there. So we had to sit there for like 5 or 6 hours while the feds show up. And they showed up late. This all went down later in the day. Feds didn't get there till like 9, 10 o'clock at night. We didn't leave until after 1 in the morning. And you know what the fucking George Brothers told me? This is where my whole investigation. People are like, you done it different? Like, da-da-da-da-da. How did it start? It was all the lifestyle, the cars. And no, we didn't have none of that shit yet. We wasn't flossing yet. What happened was the George Brothers fucking told them, we didn't extort them. This is part of our clinic. We own 50% of this and they refused to pay us and we're coming to get our money. So they were under a federal investigation down here. So what do you think they're doing now?
Now they're investigating your clinic.
Because they think it's what? Part of the George Brothers. When the feds get on you and they figured out it wasn't, do they stop? No. Feds are like, who the fuck are these clowns? Oh, Jason Votrobek. Been under DEA multiple investigations. He's a known drug smuggler. So what do you think they did?
So you leave that night. You are not arrested. The paperwork is filled out. Were any of them arrested?
Yes, all the George Brothers and their clowns were all arrested.
Okay.
Every one of them. They seized the vehicles. The DEA seized the vehicles. They were charged for extortion, all kinds of crazy stuff. I want to say they were held without a bond for days or a week or something like that before they all got bond or something like that. Then they came after us with lawsuits trying to sue us. We weren't focused on that. We were too busy growing. We were just, we could not get doctors fast enough. And the crazy thing about it is people like, I'm 24, Zach's 23 at the time. Here we are hiring doctors. We're not medical. We've never been in medical, never worked at a doctor's office, didn't go to school for it. We literally winged it all. Like, how do you hire doctors? What do you ask them? We're like Googling this shit. Like, what do you say to a doctor? How do you hire them?
Yeah.
We're fucking drug smugglers and pill fucking runners. So here we are hiring these doctors. We're hiring them off Craigslist. We're putting ads on Craigslist because we didn't want to dump all this money in the headhunters because they want like $15,000, $20,000 per doctor. It's ridiculous. So we're like putting ads on Craigslist. We're getting them. Then we're putting ads on Craigslist too to hire the girls. And we're like, we want nothing but bad bitches. So we're putting like pays $20 an hour medical clinic, girls front desk type shit. Send picture. That's it. Female send picture. Like you couldn't do that today. So these girls are sending these pictures and we're going through like, no, yes. No, yes. No. Yes. So then we bring him in, right? So it's me, Zach, and Mike Barham. And we're sitting there and we have these papers that we printed up like face, hair, and we have like rate like 1 to 10 in it, right? So then we have like a total number at the bottom. So each girl we bring him in, the only way we're interviewing them is looking at them. We're asking like dumb questions to see their personality. Not even listening.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting there like, oh, nice. Da-da-da. So how we hired them is we added up all the numbers on each girl. And then we'd be like the highest numbers that we all agreed on. And that's how we hired the girls. So we had like nothing but like 9s and 10 ditzy dumbass girls in there didn't know a fucking thing. And so I'll tell you, it caused a big problem because it was it was one of the reasons why we fail so hard too. When you get into the pain clinic business, let me remind you, the DEA gave us our license. The DEA approves you. You cannot start a pain clinic without the DEA. They have to come inspect. You have to hire an ex-DEA agent, Lewis Fisher, and these people to come consult to prove you. Like you have to you just can't just go do this. And it was crazy and I'm just sitting there shaking my head like, dude, no medical, no background, no nothing. How the fuck is this happening? I'm like, I can't believe the government's allowing this to happen. But it's like a bartender. The bartender knows that they're serving you drinks, knowing 9 times out of 10, you're getting in behind a wheel. I knew this was unethical. I knew what these people were doing with the shit. I couldn't prove it. It's none of my business, but the government's allowing it. And I didn't learn until after the fact. It's the Sackler family, Purdue Pharma. Mm-hmm. You can look this up. You can look up Dope Sick on Hulu. They lobbied Congress to exempt them from charges. This was all a setup. All my co-defendants cooperated against our head. I was direct to Purdue Pharma, the highest level of Purdue Pharma Sackler family. We had their head, biggest drug rep, the main guy. Every one of my co-defendants cooperated against him. And I asked my prosecutors during trial, where the fuck is he at? Why isn't he in here fighting with us? Or why didn't he took a plea deal? They said, we tried to bring indictment against him. In Washington, D.C. called and said he's too big to touch. And you can look it up. There's 60 Minutes. You go to my link tree, you can see all the articles. You can see all the 60 Minutes. We had a DEA whistleblower. We had 60 Minutes do multiple things on all of our stories. It's wild how Congress allowed this, everything else. CVS, Walgreens, everybody else, Sackler family pays fines. I do the time. We all did time for the same thing that CVS, Walgreens, everybody else did. I only had to pay fines for because they were exempt from prosecution. They set us all up at the end of the day. Did I know that this was unethical? 100%. But they allowed me to do it. They promoted me to do it. They brought their big drug reps in. People are like, well, the doctors. Well, the doctors only know what the drugs, they approve these drugs. And then they send a rep out to tell the doctors how to prescribe it, how to do it, what to do. Doctors don't go to school for that. They read the literature and they prescribe it the way it's supposed to be prescribed. That's why it's called malpractice. And they kept telling me, you know what you're doing wrong. And I'm like, well, tell me what I did wrong. Prescribing oxycodone outside the guidelines of medical practice. I'm like, well, what's the medical practice? Show me on black and white. It's called medical practice for a reason. Every case is different. So instead of jumping back too much, I'm like watching all this go down. And I'm watching Lewis Fisher come in. We're paying so much money for him to consult the doctors, talk to the doctors, tell them how to prescribe, what to do. I'm watching ex-DEA. I'm watching Purdue Pharma send their reps down. I'm watching all this shit play out. And we hired these dumbass broads, right? And the drug dealers are manipulating the shit out of them. They're taking tips. They're bumping people to the front. They're accepting shit like they would come in and piss dirty and they would be like $50, like here's $50, just make it right. And these dumbass broads, what do you think they're doing? They're flying in their pockets. Once you get that status and once these people go back and tell everybody like you can pay to get whatever you want, it's over with. You can't clean that clinic up. Like we tried. We brought in this guy named Roland. We had a hard time getting connects with all the pharmaceutical companies. This guy did. So we brought him in. Zach had brought Corbin in as a partner, one of the clinics to bring Roland in to give us the connect to all the big pharmaceutical companies because they won't just deal with anybody. And he was brought in to clean the business up. And he literally fired them and Zach would work against them. And it doesn't matter. They will corrupt anybody. Once you get that thing, we had to shut Jacksonville Pain down and move it to a different building, different name and everything because no matter what you do, you couldn't clean it up. And Jacksonville was my nightmare when it went to trial because how bad it was.
So when you moved your clinic, how much longer did you run that operation until you eventually got arrested?
So we had 3 clinics in Jacksonville, Jacksonville Pain, First Coast, and Duval Wellness. We didn't have that long of a run because it was like 2 months, 3 months after we went to Jacksonville, the George brothers got hit by the feds when they raided it. And then a month later, they raided Vinny Colangelo. By then, I done pulled out of Jacksonville, was starting all my operations up in Atlanta and everywhere else because me and Zach already had a falling out because I did not sign up to cater to drug dealers. I didn't sign up. We agreed that we were going to run it clean because there's so much money. When I tell you so much money to do this legit. Like you could live like no other. At our peak, we were bringing in $4 million cash a month, clearing $2 million.
That's across 3 pain clinics?
Yes. Yes.
So each one was doing like 1.3 million,
So
maybe 1 to 1.3 a month.
But here's the issue. That's on a small scale because we couldn't even get enough we couldn't get enough meds. So let's break it down. So there's no money in writing scripts. What the doctors were writing pretty much paid for the operation. We had in-house dispensaries. So you know how that works. Mm-hmm. You get your script and you can fill in-house.
Right next
Instead
door.
Instead of going anywhere else,
yep.
You don't have to worry about any things. We had it all in the same building. The money was in the pills. The money was not in writing the scripts. People are all wrong about that. It was always in the pills. We would make so much money in the pills. It was ridiculous.
when you ran your own pharmacy, when you had the in-house pharmacy, roughly Oxy 80, what were you paying for them? And then
we didn't do Oxy 80s because we didn't want the scrutiny of them. Like I told you, we agreed to not cater to drug dealers, not to have sponsors, not to do none of that stuff, bump and list. And between Zach getting greedy and everything going on, him allowing the girls to do it and everything else, it turned out that way. But we did Oxy, we did the Roxy 30s, 15s. We did everything else. We did not fuck with the Oxys. We did not mess with them. It was too much scrutiny on them. We would pay anywhere from like 40 to 60 cents per pill, and we were selling them for $2 on the low end. We ended up going up to $4 a pill eventually. Even our pharmacy techs started stealing and started finding niches too. So what they would do is they would figure out like people that were from Kentucky and north because they knew. And what they do is they short everybody a pill. So if you're filling 100 prescriptions and you short a pill, you get 100 pills a day. And then they were taking them and selling them back to they were getting connects with these sponsors and be like, hey, listen, I can get pills and I sell them to you. And they didn't tell that so when you get on the road and you get say 200 pills and one's missing and you're already miles down the road, you're not going to go back and bitch about one pill. They just never did. Every once in a while they would. They started getting greedy and trying to do two. And this shit all came out in trial and started buying. Like the corruption was through the roof. And the great thing about it is that we busted them up on the stand. Like a good attorney will beat the brakes off these people. And so when you have this much money involved in this much corruption, there's no way you can run pain clinics legally. It's impossible. The money is just, I've never seen nothing like it. It's way more than the coke business will ever think about. The pill game was.
Can you walk us through the day it all collapsed on you?
I remember it was my daughter's birthday weekend.
What year is this?
2009. I can't remember what it was. It was 2009, and I remember being in Atlanta at my house, my big house up in Atlanta.
Oh, so you had properties now.
Oh, yeah.
Different place.
Well, by then, I started laundering my money. I just did a video on how I laundered my money. I do videos and all this stuff.
How did you launder your money?
So a lot of people don't understand how to do it. You have to start off on a small scale. So all this time, I had a lot of my money in the bank and where I could do stuff with it. You start off small, like boats, cars, trucks, four-wheelers, side-by-sides, whatever. You purchase them for $10,000, $20,000. You find people you can buy it for cash. You buy cash and you turn around. I don't care if I lost some money on it, and I'd always sell it, but I wanted a check because the bank don't care. Nobody cares where the money, as long as it's in a check. Nobody gives a shit. You put in cash, they're all like, I'm banned from every big bank too. Just to let you know, I'm not allowed to deal with no big bank because of my charges. Because we put so much money in cash in the banks through the clinics, I'm banned from every big branch. I can only use Chime in these credit unions, the only two banks. So anyways, make a long story short, I would start off small, $10,000, $20,000 things. Once I got about $50,000 in the bank, I went and purchased a cheaper house that needed a lot of renovation. So I only put enough to put down on them. So what I would do, just enough. And I do like interest only loans. And then I would take that need like $100,000 renovation. I'd do it all in cash because the bank, nobody knows. Nobody knows. They just know you purchased. They think you flipped it. That's it. I put $100,000 into it as much as I could without losing money. Most of the time I made money. So instead of like paying on it, I actually made money off my money. So I'd take the house and I'd do that and then I'd sell it. And then I'd have over $100,000 in equity, like in real money. Mm-hmm. So now I'd find a bigger project and put the whole $100,000 down again. And then I would have enough money in the bank to pay the note. I wouldn't use the cash to do it. And then I would find a house that needed $150,000. And then I would repeat the process. Eventually I would have to pay taxes on that money, which it was fine. And then I was selling, buying stuff, flipping it, race cars, boats, cars, whatever. I buy it cash, sell a check. And that's how I do it. I do it on a small level because I only needed that money to buy like vehicles, houses, stuff like that. The rest of my shit, all my toys and everything else, I pay cash because it doesn't matter. Like your meals, strip clubs, hookers, your like all the small shit, vacations, cash. You only need to launder money to do your big things. So it doesn't have IRS and the big people looking at you. So when they look at you, they're like, oh, he's flipping houses. He's got a business. And I have another thing I tell people all the time, like pool businesses are great because pool business, lawn businesses, you can buy all the equipment cash, and then you can buy accounts. You spend all your drug money into advertisement and buying accounts, because lawn businesses are always selling counts that they don't want no more when they grow. And pool businesses are always, they get too many for their business. They sell them for like $1,500 a count or some shit, $500 to $1,500. So you just take it and you give them cash for it and you build your business. Now, say it costs you $1,000 a month to run your business. That's fuel, chlorine, whatever. I'm just making up a number.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to use $500 of it out of your bank account in your business, so it looks like you're using your business, and then you use $500 out of drug money to pay for your gas, some of your chlorine bills, all your stuff, materials. You don't want to do too much, because then it's an off balance and it starts looking fishy. So you just do half of it. So you're laundering money through your business that way. You're buying accounts. All your advertisements, all cash. You don't put it on your books as a tax write-off, because you don't want to be like, he's spending more money he's bringing in. I didn't care about the tax write-offs. All I wanted to do was grow my business, get as much stuff so I could sell it, or I just had it where it was making so much money to where I didn't. And you don't want businesses that you have to run yourself. You want businesses that's dummy proof, or you just hire a bunch of guys, go mow yards, clean pools, whatever. You flip a house, you're hiring contractors, you're paying them cash. There's ways of doing it. So I had plenty of money, put away. So I, already had nice shit. I'll never forget that day I was at the house. Zach calls me. He was like, dude, have you used your card? I'm like, no. I'm like, why? He's like, dude, I just went to the gas station and I couldn't use it. So I went to the ATM and it says that I was a negative $1 billion. I'm like, what? And then we found out hours later, they raided the clinic, the Jacksonville clinics. So they froze our bank accounts before they raided the clinics. I had all my money in the bank at this time. Everything was legit. I turned everything legit. I had hardly any cash. What cash I had on me was what in my pocket. I think I had like $300 something in my pocket. They had fucking seized everything I had. I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was freaking the fuck out, but they can't take a business. They can freeze the bank accounts, but they can't take the business, because all the buildings were rented. Everything was leased and rented. So they couldn't touch it. Luckily, we had enough pills in the pharmacy that they didn't come and take everything else. So we were able to keep the operation up and running. So after that day, I only put enough money in the bank just to run the operation. Rest of it, I kept that shit in cash. And I'll tell you what I did with it. You got to buy gold. You can't bury fucking cash. You bury fucking gold and you put it on state, federal parks, land that never be developed. And you put it in gold because money will mush up. I'm telling you right now, you want to keep it in gold and you want to put it on state and federal parks because they'll never be developed. Wetlands, you want to bury it on all that shit.
So you are eventually arrested.
18 months later.
Okay, so they froze all of your accounts, and what did they start to do? Investigate your pain clinics. You're still the operation's still going on.
Yes, They shut down the Florida pain clinics, but not the Atlanta ones.
Okay,
so we met with attorneys, and attorneys were like, well, I gave them $100,000. They're like, oh, it's $100,000. I gave them $100,000. They went met with the feds, and they came back and were like, you need to take a plea deal. You're going to go to prison for a long time. I'm like, do what? I just paid you $100,000. I'm like, fuck that. You're fired. I want my money back. And they're like, no. So I gave them $100,000 just to meet with the feds. And then I hired another attorney, gave him $50,000 to go meet with the feds to see what the deal is. And they came back, told me the same fucking thing. And I'm like, dude, this is beyond crazy. So the attorney told me some good advice. He says, I'm going to explain something to you, Jason. He says, you got two options. He says, you can shut your clinics down and sit here and be depressed. Or he says, keep them open and run as hard as you can and stack your fucking money and live life because you're going to prison for a long time. I was like, well, we're not going to do A. We're going to do B, boys. So me and Zach agreed that we went in business together, but we talked. We agreed that we were going to be in business together. We were going to go as hard as we could, stack our fucking money, live life to the fullest, because we knew all our attorneys were saying the same thing. I didn't understand how the feds work. I understand how. When they say that today, they mean it. I promise you, they mean it. It was good and bad because when you continue to operate, you piss them off. And all you're doing is building more charges. That's all you're doing. You're building more drugs on your PSI to get more time. You're just up in the level of money. You're up in the level of drugs. Every time you purchase drugs from the pharmaceutical companies, your drug level just went up even higher. So we didn't know none of this stupid shit. But yeah, the story of me getting busted is pretty wild. It's pretty fucking wild. We kept running the clinics trying to run them the best of our ability. We hired attorneys. We met with the feds multiple times trying to find out if we're in compliance. How do you run them legit? What do they not like? They won't talk to you. You know what they said? You'll find out when we kick the door in. I said, so you're not going to tell us how to run this business? Like, what's your rules? There's no guidelines. Our attorneys couldn't find none. There's no nothing. So this was all set up like almost like a being set up. Like it was almost like entrapment. Purdue Pharma created this thing, exempt them from charges. There's no rules, no regulations. They allowed us to do what we did. DE oversees it. And then once too many kids and people started ODing, guess what they had to do? They had to impress the, make big press. They had to impress the people like, look what we're doing. Instead of going after them, guess what they did?
Went after you.
They went after us, put us all in the press, perp walked us, and like, look what we're doing. We're fighting this. Did they change the laws? No, they didn't change the laws. They just said, look what we're doing. Can you still get oxys today? You still can get them. Purdue Pharma still in business? Yep. Have they been to prison? How do we prove that they pay these fines? How? How do you prove? When a big company, when they say they get fined $60 million, how do you prove that they actually pay them? They are the government. They're the lobbyist. You can't prove it. These are elites. They tell us what we want to know. They pay the fines, I do the time. The day we got busted, they shut my clinic down a month prior in Atlanta. They finally raided the rest of all our clinics from Tennessee to everywhere, Zach's clinic, because we were going to expand all over the place. I was getting out of the pain clinic business. I was done and over with it. The money's not in the pain clinics. It's too much scrutiny. The feds didn't want to tell us how to operate. I'm like, fuck this. I told my co-defendant, Jesse, the other one that cooperated against me, shut the fucking clinic down. This was like a month before it got raided. He said, no, the girls can't, we need to let all them to get time. I'm like, no, shut the fucking business down. I'm done. We were going to start a bunch of pharmacies, and we're going to call it JJR Pharmacies. Jason, Jesse, Roland. That's how we came with JJR. And I met this guy, and he owned a lot of mom and pop pharmacies. And when CVS and Walgreens came in, they paid him top dollars to buy him out. So I was like, perfect. I got so much goddamn money. I'm like, I have so much money. I don't know what to do with it. It was just raining money. So I was like, you know what? We're going to start up a bunch of pharmacies, and we're going to literally sell everything at cost just to step on CVS and Walgreens. I'm going to set them all up within 100, 200 yards or less than a quarter of a mile from everywhere they're at. We're going to find a building. We're going to rent it, and we're going to step on their fucking toes. And I had picked out, I was like, I want 10 of them right now, downtown Atlanta, right now, JGR Pharmacies. And I want them on the corner, on the back of every CVS and Walgreens. And we're going to sell everything at cost just to step on their toes. I don't care about I want to make enough money just to run the operation, not a profit. Just to fucking step on their toes to where they come to me and say, we'll give you 20 million. We'll buy you out. Stop what you're doing. And that was my plan. That was my next cash out, was to force them to make me sell to them. And the feds, they
hated you.
They hated me. Yeah, they didn't like me. I had 10 operations getting up around. I had 2 of them that were supposed to open the doors. And when they seized that whole operation, it was bad. They perp walked to make sure that nobody would fucking deal with me. That's how they shut my operation down.
Walk us through the day that you were put in handcuffs.
I remember we went to Atlanta. I was shutting my house down in Atlanta. I was having my brother show up. Me and Jesse went up the night before, and my brother was going to show up. I was going to get a U-Haul. I was giving him all my furniture in this house, everything else. I was getting rid of the house. I'm like, fuck it, I'm done. I don't need all this overhead. Shit's getting bad. I'm getting everything, leases, house, everything that I owned and leased that wasn't here in Vero. I wanted it gone. I wanted all my overhead gone because I was liquidating because I didn't want to waste. I had no money coming in, so I don't want to spend no money. So I'll never forget, we woke up that morning, me and Jesse, the night before, took everything apart and had it all ready to go. So we slept on mattresses on the floor. And I remember pulling out, and I didn't recognize the feds were sitting right there. I was in a culvert sack in this gated community, right? And he was sitting right there and didn't even fucking see him because I thought it was an extra neighbor's truck out there. He's sitting in the culvert sack. So we pull out, and I'm talking to Jesse. I'm looking at him. He's driving. I'm talking to him. And there's like, I'll never forget, these houses are on like pretty big, like yards, pretty big yards, probably quarter acre or bigger, nice. They're set off the road a little ways. And this one had this huge head down the hedge, down the side of the driveway. And I just remember and looking at him talking. And there's this car like backed in the thing. And I just remember like sitting there talking to Jesse, like, yeah, man, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember like catching something going like this. And I like looked and I just see this dude like, you know, like dancing, like, you know, I see like he's like a deer in headlights. I see him. So I'm like, Jesse, I'm like, dude, something ain't right. And he's like, man, you're fucking tripping. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, we're being followed, dude. Like they're watching us. And he's like, no, you're not. So there's this gated community. You know how they got like guardhouse and then they have like, you can do a U-turn in case you pull in before them. So we like whip through the little thing. And then the car goes by. I'm like, see, dude, he's going by. And he's like, dude just acts normal, just drives on by. He's like, dude, that dude was just leaving this house and you're tripping. We pull out, dude. This car's doing a U-turn. I said, I fucking told you. So we didn't realize I had a tracking device on the car. So we shook his ass. We find another one. We shook his ass. We're shaking them all, dude. I mean, literally pulling e-brakes, reversing driveways. Dude, they're going by. We're sliding out, hitting back roads, like going through people's yards. And before we knew it, we could not shake them. So we already knew. We're like, we got a tracking device. There were 17 unmarked cars that morning. We pulled up to the U-Haul place. We finally gave up. We pulled up into the light. I swear to God. We already know what cars are what because we shook most of them, right? So one's in front of us, two's on one side, one's here, and they're acting normal. They're not looking at us, not even like nothing, dude. And we're looking at them like, yeah, we know. And dude, my stomach is in my throat. I'm just like, I'm sick. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. It's over with. Like, I know it's happening today. So we go to U-Haul place and I go in, we park, we walk in. And it's like this huge long like U-Hauls and then they like store like stuff. There was like almost like a storage unit, indoor storage unit and a U-Haul. Like they had U-Hauls there. And I remember going in, there was a long line and I get up there and they're like, we don't have no big U-Hauls. So I walk out. Then when I walk out, the sidewalk's down the front of it and Jesse's parked down there. So I make a left to walk to him and I see this person like dive out of the fucking windshield. They were like in the windshield of a car looking like this and they dive back. And I'm like, holy fuck, there's another one. It's a female. So I tell Jesse, I'm like, dude, this car down here. So then this pregnant white girl comes out. She was the one behind me in the line, walks out and goes and gets in that car. And I said, Jesse, the fucking pregnant girl's a DEA agent too.
She's in on it.
She's in on it. She's like 8 months pregnant. Like, I'm like, holy shit, dude. She was behind me in line while I was talking on the phone, telling somebody what's going on, listening to my whole conversation. I'm on a burner phone, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? This is crazy, dude. So we're just like, fuck this, dude. Like, let's just go back to the house and wait and just let it play out. They pulled us, they had a state trooper pull us over about a mile or two before we got to the house. And they held us there for like hours, tearing the car apart and everything else, questioning us. And finally, I'm on the phone with Brooke and I'm like, this is my attorney friend that's like the baddest attorney around. It's got my back for anything. She's only like, not even 30 at the time. Tiny little blonde. And I'm like, fucking Brooke, they got us, dude. I'm like, dude, there's so many of them. I can't even count all the fucking cars, dude. Like, it's over with. And she's like, fuck them fat pig motherfuckers. And she's like texting me, go fucking buy them some donuts. Tell them to go to the donut shop. Leave you the fuck alone. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, Brooke, they want to search the house. She goes, anything else? I said, no, just fucking let them search it. So I'm like, okay. She said, well, you can search it. So they're like, okay, go. So we start going. I look behind us. Dude, there's 17 unmarked cars with the state trooper behind them. I take a video of this shit and I send it to her. I'm like, dude, look at this. I've never seen this. So we pull into the house. They search the whole house. The main agent is sitting there on the phone helping us find a U-Haul, calling all them. We're all just kicked back, talking like normal, making us feel comfortable. Like, I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like the agent's like, hold on, I know another place. And he's calling them. Hey, y'all got a big U-Haul? You got a big U-Haul? And he's like, man, da-da-da. So then he's like, how the fuck did you know that we were trailing you? I said, Elvis over there, because he had these big Elvis chops. And they're like, oh, you fucking rookie. So they're like picking on him, cussing him. He's like, come on, man. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. I'm like, dude, we rode by. You're like, oh, there he is. Like, oh. And I'm like, dude, you gave it away. And then they're like, the pregnant girl gave it away too. Yeah. So they're all laughing and they're like, oh, dude, everybody's good. And they're like, yeah, we're done searching, nothing here. And he's like, all right, we're out of here. So everybody walks out the door. The main agent walks out. He's like, hey, see y'all, have a good day. And I'm like, what the fuck? So the door closed and I look at Jesse. Jesse looks at me. He's like, the time we did that, the door opens back up. He's like, hey, we forgot one thing. And we're like, well, what's that? And he's like, y'all two, stand up. You're arrested for drug conspiracy, money laundering, for running some of the biggest things, blah, blah, blah. Put your hands behind your back. So he handcuffs me up front. Handcuffs Jesse. As soon as he handcuffs Jesse, and Jesse takes the first thing, he passes out. Like fucking goes out. I'm like, like, dude, this is bad. So puts us in the front seat of the vehicle. So I get in one vehicle, Jesse gets the other one. And I just sitting there like, he's just being normal as could be, talking to me. And we pull into Burger King and he like orders some food. And I look at him and say, you gonna order some food for me? He goes, I ain't your fucking mom or your dad. Or he said something smart to me. And I'm like, you ain't gonna fucking feed me? I'm hungry. He says, nah, you don't deserve it. And they took us to the county jail and they booked us. And I'll never forget, because people say like the whole iPhone thing's a fucking lie. Like they can't break into an iPhone. Remember the whole suicide bomber thing out in California where they couldn't get in iPhone, people wouldn't give them. The FBI was mad because they couldn't get a back door. It's all fucking lie. They want you to believe that, so you'll continue to keep talking and doing it on your phone. They literally plugged my iPhone 6 right into this cord, and they were going through my fucking phone, looking through it like this, and they seen my attorney talking about, you fat fuckers eat donuts, and they're all like, come here, look what his attorney's saying. I'm listening through the door. So this whole lie about they can't get in these phones is all bullshit.
Oh, 100%. They could absolutely get into any phone they want to.
So you know how I know all this shit is, all this social media shit is false? What happened to Telegram? The guy that got arrested over in France, the founder, why did they arrest him? They wouldn't give him a back door. Remember? It's in articles. They wouldn't give him he wouldn't allow them in the back door because people were using it to do stuff. So they arrested him. They had the United States, had France arrest him, and now they're charging him on that shit. So why aren't they going after everybody else? So people are like, use Signal, use this. I'm like, you don't use none of that. You don't use any of it, because if they're not getting arrested like Telegram, they gave up their whole cover when they did that. The FBI has a backdoor to everybody. Every social media, every phone, everything they have a backdoor. They extort them, they threaten them. You got to realize you're going up against people that bully other countries. They write the laws, they print the money. How do you beat them? I took them to feds and a trial and I beat them. But you know what they told me? We're not going to stop till you go to prison. Straight out their mouth.
So really quick, walk us through, okay, so you get charges brought up on you. You end up taking the feds to trial.
Yeah.
You beat them.
Yes. Month-long trial. 7 people cooperated against me, and I was found not guilty.
Okay. And then how did you end up going to prison?
Okay. So how it all worked, instead of indicting me all the clinics together like they did other people, since I wouldn't cooperate. So I'm going to tell you. So when I turned myself in, or when I got arrested in Georgia, they put me in a room and they said, are you going to talk? And I said, no. And they said, do you realize your co-defendant over there, Jesse, is singing like a bird? I said, what kind of bird? What kind of tune? And I started whistling. And they're like, oh, you're a smart ass. I said, no. I said, you came in here and started saying some dumb shit. I said, I don't know what I did wrong. I'm not talking about none. I want a lawyer. How many times I got to tell you I want a lawyer? So they hid us for like 3 or 4 days. We stayed hidden. They moved us from county jail to county jail because they didn't want no attorneys. Nobody wouldn't give us no phone calls. Luckily, Brooke, my gangster, that's what I call her. She's the baddest thing. So 3 or 4 days later, we're going to our first appearance in federal court in Rome, Georgia. So they move us way out to this little buttfuck Egypt. They don't even got prosecutors. They have to get prosecutors from Atlanta to go out there. It's an old like post office building. It's got 2 judges. And I never forget, we're waiting in the holding tank behind the courtroom. And all of a sudden the door opens and all these lawyers come flying in. Who's Roland? Who's this? Who's Jesse? Who's that? And they're like, who's Jason? I'm like, me. And they're like, whoever the fuck you are. I don't know who you are and what your relationship with Brooke, but she just hired the baddest team that money can buy in Atlanta. She went through and screened every attorney, hired all the baddest attorneys. And so they didn't realize, like my co-defendants didn't realize. So she hired a team of attorneys, found out who the best attorney was, and then found out who he works with the best, who he teams up with, and hired all those attorneys to be my co-defendant's attorney. So we would know if one of them is cooperating. We would know right off the get. We would know who's cooperating, who was going to cooperate by building the team. Because she knows how to build a team and that lawyers won't work against each other. You have to hire another attorney if you're going to cooperate.
Yeah.
You'll have to fire your attorney. So she hired this team of attorneys for my first appearance. Like they come in and none of us had ever made a phone call. We didn't know nothing. So it was like some shit you see out of a mob movie, like straight gangster. Like
you were just all lawyered
to the hilt.
Yep.
Didn't have to do nothing. My girl here took care of it all. So they didn't give me bond. They made me wait another 9 days to get bond. I finally got bond. And the only reason why I got bond, and I got the jail phone call to prove it, is Zach and these others had told them that I was a drug smuggler, and they knew that, and that I would go back to what I was doing. So they gave me a bond. And my probation officer was like, because I was on fed probation while I was waiting to go to trial. And she was like, I've never in my world have ever seen somebody on a case like this or anybody like you get a fucking bond. She says, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I don't want you driving. I don't want you leaving your house. If you have to, please have somebody with you. She's like, they're setting you up for failure. My attorneys told me the same thing. We're like, this is beyond crazy. So I was already like standoffish, like, you know, like worried, like what the fuck is going on? Like, she's like, you can leave your district. I had full reins to run Florida and Georgia between the two. Like I could go anywhere without telling her. She's like, I've never had this ever have somebody just go without telling me and prove anything through me. So because I had stipulations to it, you know, like getting out. So a month later, 3 months later, Florida decides to indict me. So I'm at Spearmint Rhino eating lunch. I'm getting a lap dance. So
right
I'm
over here,
there,
Spearmint Rhino.
So I'm in there getting a lap dance. My phone's just blowing up. I look and it's my girl, Jamie. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I blow it down. And then she hits a text and it says, you just been indicted. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is crazy. She's like, yeah, you just been indicted and they want to know when you want to turn yourself in. So I just take the girl. She's like bent over dancing on me. And I couldn't breathe. I just went like that. And she went face first into the wall, dude, like hit the baseboard all down there. And she's like screaming, what the fuck, getting mad. And I just remember in my face, and I don't remember anything. I was just like, I'm like, they're not going to give me bond. I'm fucked. Everything else. I get pulled over on the way home. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to jail. I called her. I'm like, dude, I just got pulled over. I went through the toll, didn't have my seatbelt, and he was hiding behind the thing. And I'm just like, I just got pulled over. I got a warrant. I'm done. No warrant. Didn't see it. They didn't put the warrant out for me yet. So I went to Disney World for the whole weekend. I turned myself in Monday morning, and I'll never forget. They have booking stations behind the courthouses. Like in the courthouse, they have the jail inside it, the U.S. Marshals. Mm-hmm. So as they're fingerprinting me, it's Janet and Bruce DeVille. Janet's FBI female, and Bruce is the DEA, and they're like doing the fingerprints, the DNA. And I'll never forget. Janet's like, "So you gonna cooperate today?" She's like, right here in my face, short lady, and so she's like, you gonna cooperate today? And I'm like, no, ma'am. She goes, so you're not gonna cooperate? And I'm like, no, why? I said, isn't that your job to figure out what's going on? She goes, yeah, but you realize what you did? I'm like, ma'am, nobody's told me what I've done so far. Nobody can tell me. They just say, I know what I did. So she's like telling me, she's like, so you're gonna tell me you ain't cooperating? I said, no, ma'am. I said, I'm not cooperating. She says, you know how much time you're looking at? I said, no, ma'am. She goes, oof. She like sniffs me. She's like, She's like, ooh, it's going to hurt. It's a lot. And I'm thinking like, who the fuck is this lady, dude? She's so ugly too. So I'm thinking like, dude, is this like good cop, bad cop thing going on? And she's telling me like, ooh, she says, you'll be my bitch before this is over with. And she's like in my face, dude. And then Bruce is like laughing at me, dude. And I'm thinking like, nah, I'm not going to be nobody's bitch. Like, nah, I'm all right. So I go in, the judge gives me bond. My attorneys are like, who the fuck gets indicted twice? So the reason why they indicted me twice, separate my case, it's both federal, is they get 2 shots at the pie because I didn't cooperate in Georgia. So as soon as I didn't cooperate, they're like, fucking and hit him here, keep hitting him until he cooperates because they want Colombia, Bahamas.
Got it.
They want my Cali Connect, you know, all the pot moving, all that stuff. They want me to cooperate on everything. They done built this huge case. They know it. I won't cooperate. So they're like, keep indicting him is what my attorneys told me. So I'm like, whatever. Fuck it. Let's run it. So I just literally laying on the couch, just like something ain't right. And they're still fucking with me. Like the cops are on me. They're just harassing me. You know, I had a do not detain order on me so I could do whatever the fuck I wanted to do. Like, I don't know if you know what that is.
I do.
So
but explain it
like,
for the audience. Yeah.
So a do not detain, I did it on my TikTok too, explained it. So what it is anything that's registered to you or your license, your name. So if the cops run my tag, so I didn't believe it. Somebody was pulling one of my trailers and it got through the sheriff's department that they had to fill out a detain. That's how I found I had it. And I asked my attorneys and they're like, you don't have one. So I went and ran a red light in front of a cop, like blew smoke to tires right in front of the cop. He ran me down, ran my tag, pulled off. And I was like, holy fuck. So if they pull you over or do anything, they're not allowed to detain you unless you kill somebody. They have to fill out a questionnaire like, where was he at? What was he driving? What was he doing? Who was he with?
Yeah, you're a federal.
Like they want to know. I don't know what the questions were. I'm just assuming what the attorneys told me. So they want to know as much information. They have to let you go. So let me tell you, that was fun. We did some shit that just like I would do shit nonstop.
You just keep pushing it.
Dude.
You're out of your mind.
Well, I knew I was going to prison for a long time.
I know, but still, I would have been I'm like a scaredy cat. I would have been an angel.
Dude, I was fucking with them nonstop, doing the most craziest fucking things. They were literally like to the point where my attorneys, my lawyer was so mad at me. They were so mad because I knew my phone was tapped. So when they finally got the discovery that when they got the phone discovery, I called some of my buddies to call me and I'm like, hi guys, how you doing? They're like, hey, what's up? What are you doing today? I'm like, no, you got to say hi to the feds first. And they're like, what? I'm like, say hi feds. And they're like, hi feds. And I'm like, tell them to suck a dick to their neck bust. And they're like, no, I'm not telling that. You're fucking stupid. So my attorneys were like, how'd you know your phone was tapped? Who told you? And I'm like, why do you want to know? I'm like, what does it matter? And they're like, who fucking told you your phone was tapped? I said, who wants to know? You or the feds? They wouldn't answer me. I said, so the fucking feds want to know. And you're working with them. So that was my first thing. I went to Brooklyn. I'm like, dude, they want to, like, why the fuck when they would tell me why do they want to know? What does it matter? It doesn't change nothing.
Yeah.
So I pushed it. I'm not going to lie. I was young, dude. You got to remember.
What year is this? 11?
2011.
Okay.
You got to remember, I'm 25 years old, 26. I'm worth fucking ton of, I mean, my last year I was going to make with all my businesses between $9 to $12 million at 26 years old. I have 5 houses. I got everything. We got Ferraris, Lamborghinis, helicopters, planes, offshore boats. I mean, we're landing helicopters in fucking KFC parking lots. Got pictures and like Zach and like we're literally doing the dumbest fucking things, like land them in the front yard of the house with the cops showing up. Like the dumbest things you can think about. Like we're literally buying cars and like you don't even want to know. Like the feds are pulling us over, taking our cars, and we go get a nicer car. It's like if they took my car, like they pull my girl over all the time, S550 Mercedes. I go buy a S63 Mercedes. Like, just money was not an option.
When are you dead to rights?
What do you mean?
When do you go to trial and then you eventually get convicted, and how much time do you get?
2 years later, I go to trial.
2013 we're at.
2013, I go to trial, and it was a month-long trial. I was found not guilty. The federal agents, the prosecutor, Jay Taylor, Bruce and Janet sit down at lunch with my attorneys before the jury came back with the verdict. It was like day 2 of the jury was out, and we're eating like out in front of this little sandwich shop downtown when they let us go on lunch break. And they asked if they can sit down. And I said, I don't care. So they sit down and they begged me to take a plea deal. And they're like, Votrobek, man, listen, we're not the ones. I'm telling you, please, off the record, please just take a plea deal. Like they're going to give you fucking life. Like they're not playing. Like you're going to beat us here.
But you said you were found not guilty.
But I wasn't found guilty yet. This is why the jury was out deliberating still. They were out for 3 days.
Okay, got it.
So he's like, the prosecutor's like, listen, Jason, I'm a seasoned prosecutor. I've never been beat before. I know you're going to beat me. He's like, you're going to be the first one to ever beat me on a drug conspiracy. Like, this is unheard of.
Got it. Okay.
And he's like, but I'm not the one that's after you. He goes, I'm just going to give you advice. He's like, Jason, please. Because I was looking at a life sentence. Like, I went to trial on a life sentence because I went and cooperated against my girl, take my kid away from her mother, all these other things. Like, I just refused to cooperate. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So I was like, fuck that. The jury was out. They sat down and they had a one-on-one conversation with me, my attorney, my mom. They'll back it up. And they were telling me like, listen, we never been beaten. I looked over at Jana and I was like, so who's who, bitch, now? And she started like just laughing at me. She's like, Jason, I really like you. I'll give it to you. Like, we targeted you. You know why she targeted me? She's like, because you were a family. We watched you. He says, dude, the love for your daughter and how much he goes like, you spend every minute with your daughter. You're a family man. You had a lot of shit going for you. You wasn't on drugs. So we figured that you would flip. We figured that you would have rolled. We could have got you a hell of a deal. And I just told her, I said, I'm not built that way. She goes, we respect the fuck out of you. Like all the agents in my case, they all respect me because of how solid I was. It's the damnest thing. Like they wanted me to cooperate, but then they also, at the end of the day, they love it that I didn't. And then I took it all the way to the box. Like the agent told me when I got my clemency, he said that people were like, you fucking scumbag got it. And he's like, yeah, he might be a scumbag in your eyes, but he says, I respect that dude. He's like, he could have ruined a lot of lives and he didn't.
So you end up taking a deal?
No.
Okay, so you know, then he comes back not guilty, but how did you end up in prison?
Okay, so I was fighting 2 federal cases at the same time. So I was fighting Florida and Georgia at the same time. So I'm having to fight hearings on both. Yep. So I'm fighting 2 different, exactly same indictments, life sentence in both. So I'm like, fuck it, we're going all the way to the box because I can't take a plea deal without giving up like my girl, Colombia, Bahamas, everybody. So I'm like, fuck this. I kept telling them, come with a good enough plea deal without certain things and I'll take a plea deal. And they said, no, they said, we don't do plea deals without knowledge. I was like, well, fuck it. Then we're going to the box all the way. So I beat the feds there. The very next year I go to trial in Atlanta and I'm winning. I'm beating them. I'm beating him hands down. I had 7 people cooperate against me in Florida and I still was found out guilty. And so I'm winning the first 2 weeks, and my attorney, I had Brian Steele, Young Thug's attorney.
Oh, yes, Young Thug's attorney. Yep.
Well, he's only a camera hog. So behind the scenes, and I'm going to tell you what happened. And this is I did some more videos on TikTok.
You had Brian Steele?
Yeah, I had Brian Steele.
Brooke. That's like one of the best.
Yeah. So Brian, that was who Brooke hired for me. That was my legal team. I had jury consultants. We ran mock trials. I spent $600,000 in my trial. So we did mock trials. We set up mock trials where I hired people, jurors, scaling them. Like, we wanted to learn. Nobody ever fought these cases. So I was the first. You know what I'm saying? I was first to win. I've taken the trial. So we're doing all this stuff. So anyways, make a long story short, I take it the trial, and Brian lays down. And I'll tell you what happened, and I'll explain this. I was heading to Atlanta one time, and the fucking cops got on I-75 in Atlanta, got behind me, pulled me over, and was trying to, I had a tracking device on my truck. I didn't know it. They targeted me, pulled me over, started asking me too many personal questions. What are you doing up here? Why are you up here? And I'm like, I'm up here to take care of business. What kind of business? And I'm like, holy fuck, you're asking something. I finally started getting mouthy with them. I said, it's none of your fucking business. Like, it ain't. Fuck this. And I called Brooke. And I'm like, Brooke, this cocksucker right here. He's like, man, why you I'm like, listen, you're being a fucking asshole. You're asking me. I told you I have an attorney. Talk to her. Brooke's like, what's the problem? And he's like, well, I'm just trying to be friendly with him, asking these questions. He doesn't want to answer nothing. And I'm like, Brooke, he's asking me questions. I tell him I have an attorney. He's still trying to talk to me. She says, you know, you're in the wrong, blah, 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 and all this stuff. So he has to let me go now because I done busted his ass, I told him I have an attorney. You can't ask me these questions.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to see my lawyers. I can't tell you. He's asking me, what are you going to talk to him about? Can I search your vehicle? You got any drugs, weapons, or anything? I said, no, I had $75,000 in cash. And I'm like thinking they want to intercept my money. So they threatened my attorney. So what they did was they asked him, do you know where he's getting all his money at? And this come from a good source. And they said, no. And they said, do you realize that if you don't make him take a plea deal or lay down in trial, if you win, we'll come after you for a money laundering? Because if we prove 1 penny of that money is illegal money that we're looking for, we'll get you for money laundering. So my lawyers laid down in trial, and I couldn't get the judge to fire him or nothing. So I had to sit there and just take the ass whooping. They wouldn't object no more. They wouldn't do nothing. Brian still fucking laid down on me. You know what his wife told me? He wouldn't even show up to sentencing because I was going to hit him during sentencing. As soon as the judge was going to hit the gavel, because you're only shackled, you're not handcuffed. I was just smoke his ass. And he sent his wife. He wouldn't even come to my fucking Colette to do my sentencing because he knew I was going to hit him. I told him, I'm going to fuck you up. I told him. You know what they told me? Lay down, do your time. I said, why didn't you tell them I wanted an appeal? I had to stand up and yell, Your Honor, as they're dragging me out, I want an appeal. I want to file an appeal. Because he asked me, my attorney said, we'll get back with you. I said, fuck no, nuh-uh. And I asked her, she came back to me. I said, why'd you do that? She says, lay down, do your time. You got nothing coming. That's what she told me.
How much time did you get?
15 years.
How much did you serve?
I did 8 years. I got out because of COVID. First time offender, nonviolent.
Yep.
And I did 3.5 years in home confinement, and I just got the clemency from Biden.
Okay. So you just got cleared.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What have you learned from all of that?
You don't fuck with the feds. You don't play with these people when they say they come after you like that. What did I learn from it all? I'm going to tell you, if you're up to anything no good, keep your friends and family out of it. Don't tell nobody. Keep all your business self, because let me explain to what happened is we all want to tell our friends what we got going on and brag about shit. When the feds get them, they want to tell the feds as much as possible to get a better deal. So they're going to give them all the juiciest dirts and everything else, where you're hiding money, how you're doing everything else. One thing I've learned, your business is your business. Friends have friends, and friends tell friends things, and your business will be out there. What you don't want told, do it your fucking self. Don't tell nobody. If you're up to no good, what you do with what you're doing up to, just keep it to your fucking self. I don't trust nobody no more. I don't, even on shit that I'm not worried about, I don't trust people. What's the old saying? The old saying says that I think 50 Cent said it. Said something about you don't tell small-minded people your dreams and your passions because they'll crush them. They don't understand how to concept. They're the first, friends and family, the first people to hold you down and throw you under the bus. I was a millionaire before I went to prison. When I went to prison. And I tell people all the time, what the lawyers don't get, or the feds don't get, your lawyers are going to get. And I think they collide with your lawyers and tell them, listen, we were able to get this much. We think this much is still missing. And what they don't get, friends and family get the rest. As soon as they put them handcuffs on me, and this is another lesson I learned. As soon as they put them handcuffs on me, it was like piranhas. everybody was trying to grab like I was never going to come home. It was ungodly how bad it was.